Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Timothy Brown, and I will be talking to you all about mandatory minimums in prison. So, it's no secret at all that, the United States, they pretty much make the most arrests every year. As of today, the American criminal justice system holds almost 2.3 million people in over 1,700 state prisons. 109 federal prisons, over 1,700 juvenile correctional facilities, 3,100 local jails, and 80 Indian country jails, as well as military prisons, immigration detention facilities, civil commitment centers, state psychiatric hospitals, and prisons in U.S. territories. That's all according to prisonpolicy.org. That's a lot of people. 2.3 million people. So I have a slight pie chart that we can use so you can clearly see here, 612,000 people in local jails, 1.3 million in state prisons, 221,000 in federal prisons and jail. And this is our youth, immigration detention, and involuntary commitment. Again, like I said, 2.3 million people, but this is just a slight chart, to gauge where those people are at. And then even in here, we have 462,000 people that are not convicted. That's over half of the population of the local jails. The main driving factor behind, issues like this is mandatory prison minimums. So in the 80s, there was drug problems out and about, and to counteract those drug problems, they had mandatory minimums. If you were caught selling about 280 grams of crack, boom, you have to face 10 years. The problem with the mandatory minimums is that crime didn't get better at all. Crime didn't go away. That didn't stop it. And now we have people who do crimes that are nowhere near as severe as even selling crack, if you want to call that a severe crime. People who are doing things a lot worse than that, facing 5 to 10 years. Take a 22-year-old from Florida who was selling painkillers. Now he has to face 5 years in prison. Could you imagine, how the crime rate would drop after that? It wouldn't drop at all. Judges can't override mandatory minimums. It's above them. They would actually get in trouble for, handing out a lesser sentence than what's required by law. The problem with this is that judges aren't allowed to judge. That is pretty much the policymakers or the political parties. They make the rules. As far as my personal opinion on this matter goes, I do think people who sell crack cocaine or any kind of drug, they do need to be incarcerated. You're putting poison onto the streets, you're causing a multitude of problems by selling that kind of drug. So I agree with the mandatory minimum to an extent. But, there are other people out there like Weldon Angelos. Read up on him after this video. He was a guy who had a family. He was about 24 years old, aspiring to be a rapper. And he was sentenced to a mandatory 55 years in prison for selling a few pounds of marijuana while possessing a firearm. So, in that situation, granted, the consequences of what he was doing could have turned out worse, but I don't think you should go to prison for 55 years for selling marijuana when people have raped people and gotten a lot less time than that. And we're on the way of having legal marijuana now. So that's not something I agree with at all. This will pretty much conclude my video. I just wanted to try to educate you guys about the mandatory minimums, and possibly the 3-strike rule goes hand in hand with this. So, if you didn't know that those things were in order, if you thought that you could commit a crime and there was no such thing as a mandatory minimum, I hate to break it to you, but there is, and you could be facing serious time for any dumb little mistake that you make. So please think twice, and if you just wanted to be educated, I appreciate you for coming here as well. Thank you, and have a nice night.